Kyler Murray has officially been named the Vikings starting quarterback, and NFL stars are already reacting. Some believe Minnesota made the right call, while others aren't happy with how McCarthy was pushed aside. The whole decision has divided people around the league. Let's get into it. Let's start with what actually happened, because the timing here caught almost everyone off guard. Head coach Kevin O'Connell called his quarterbacks into a room, one at a time, and told them the competition was over. The quarterback battle in Minnesota came to a swift conclusion as the Vikings named Kyler Murray their new starter over former first-round pick McCarthy, with head coach Kevin O'Connell informing the team of his decision on Tuesday. No slow rollout, no drawn-out press conference teasing an announcement for later in the week. Just a meeting, then a team-wide update, then it was done. And here's the part that actually surprised people: the calendar. This battle was expected to last into the preseason, but O'Connell called the contest 4 days before the Vikings were scheduled to take the field against the New York Giants. 4 days. That's it. Teams usually milk quarterback competitions through the entire preseason schedule, sometimes right up until final roster cuts, just to squeeze out every rep and every data point. O'Connell didn't do that here. The Minnesota Vikings quarterback competition lasted just 2 weeks into training camp. 2 weeks for a job that both players had been building towards since the spring. So how did the locker room find out, and how did the guy who lost the job take it? As for the status of McCarthy, O'Connell said he is slotted in as the backup and he's ready to go. That's the company line. But when the news actually broke, the NFL world didn't just nod along quietly. People had opinions, and they had them fast. Start with Justin Jefferson, the best receiver on the roster, and the guy with more at stake in this decision than almost anyone not wearing a helmet on Sundays. Jefferson had been walking a tightrope for months, refusing to pick a side publicly, while both quarterbacks fought for the job he'd eventually have to throw with. Once Murray got the nod, though, Jefferson's excitement wasn't hidden. Back when Murray first signed, Jefferson spoke with the media for the first time since Murray's signing, joining Vikings fans with a grin, saying his first reaction was that it's really good to get some good talent in the room, to give a little spark and see a competitive edge. He wasn't just being diplomatic. He said the team needed that one guy for this team, and that he was definitely excited for that room. Then there's the analyst world, and this is where things got loud. Dan Orlovsky, a former NFL quarterback himself who's been tracking this quarterback room since the spring, didn't hold back once the decision came down. He posted a blunt assessment of what's riding on Murray now that the job is officially his. Lot of pressure on Kyler to save a lot of jobs, Orlovsky wrote. That's not a compliment dressed up as a joke. That's an analyst pointing out that if this doesn't work, careers in Minnesota's building are on the line, not just Murray's. A third voice worth hearing belongs to PFN analyst Jacob Infante, who framed the move as more than justified, given the roster around it. He praised the timing and the fit, arguing the Vikings have a team ready to compete for a playoff spot, and that Kyler is the more polished option, calling it unusual to see a QB battle called off before preseason even started. And then there was the sharper-edged commentary, the kind that doesn't pretend to be neutral. NFL commentary account Elite Takes zeroed in on exactly why this decision felt inevitable in hindsight, noting that the early timing would help Murray get all the first-team reps possible in a new system, but that it made it seem like there was never a real competition to begin with. That's the split right there. Some people are thrilled Minnesota finally has clarity. Others think the whole competition storyline was a formality dressed up to look like suspense. Either way, Murray's the guy now, and the league has noticed. But to understand why this decision landed the way it did, why some people are calling it obvious and others are calling it a shock, you have to rewind. You have to look at where Kyler Murray was 6 months ago, what the Vikings were actually dealing with at quarterback, and why a former #1 pick who once looked like a franchise cornerstone ended up needing a fresh start in Minnesota in the first place. Kyler Murray wasn't supposed to need a soft landing spot. He was the guy everyone in Arizona built around. Back in 2019, Murray spent 7 seasons with the Cardinals after they selected him #1 in the 2019 draft. He didn't just show up and survive as a rookie. He won the NFL's Rookie of the Year award in his first season and was named to a pair of NFC Pro Bowl teams. For a stretch, especially during his Pro Bowl level success in 2020 and 2021, a clear driver was the presence of an all-pro receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. Murray and Hopkins made defenses look silly together. Then it started falling apart, not all at once, in pieces. Since 2022, across 4 NFL seasons, His athleticism hadn't yielded much production, and from 2022 to 2025, Murray missed 30 of his possible 68 games. 30 missed games. That's basically 2 full seasons worth of absence spread across 4 years. Injuries kept derailing what should have been his prime. Last year made things worse due to injuries. Murray missed significant time in 2025, with Jacoby Brissett replacing him beginning in Week 6 and Arizona's franchise quarterback not appearing again, before the team placed him on season-ending IR as they stumbled to last place in the NFC West. That's about as rough an ending as a franchise quarterback can have. Benched, hurt, buried on IR, watching his own team finish at the bottom of the division from the sideline. The business side made an exit almost mandatory. Murray had signed a 5-year, $230.5 million extension in 2022 with 3 years remaining, and trading that contract was going to be no small feat for Arizona. The Cardinals had a choice: keep Murray, try and trade an enormous contract, or cut him outright. A new coaching staff came in, and the organization decided to make a clean break this offseason after hiring new coach Mike LaFleur. Once Murray hit the market, speculation went everywhere. The Colts got mentioned. So did the Jets. So did a trio of teams named by Bleacher Report: the Steelers, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Carolina Panthers, as landing spots once it became clear he was on his way out. But one name kept surfacing more than the rest: Minnesota. Score North's Phil Mackey reported that Murray would be interested in playing for the Minnesota Vikings next season. Why Minnesota? Because Minnesota needed him just as badly as he needed them. The Vikings quarterback room had been a revolving door for years, and the guy currently holding the job, J.J. McCarthy, had just gone through a season that alarmed nearly everyone watching. McCarthy ranked dead last in the NFL in 2025 in completion percentage at 57.6%, touchdown to interception ratio at 11-12, and passer rating at 72.6. Those aren't backup numbers accidentally posted by a starter. Those are numbers that make front offices panic. It wasn't supposed to go this way for McCarthy. Drafted at number 10 overall just 2 years earlier, the national championship winning quarterback out of Michigan missed his entire rookie season after a preseason knee injury. The Vikings had shown patience with him too. They showed confidence in him entering 2025 when they didn't re-sign Sam Darnold. But that decision backfired as McCarthy kept getting injured while Darnold went on to win a Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks. Imagine watching the guy you let walk hoist a trophy while the guy you kept can't stay healthy or productive. That's the exact bind Minnesota was in heading into this offseason. So when Murray hit free agency, Minnesota didn't hesitate. Minnesota signed Murray to a 1-year contract in March, following his release from Arizona. The money made it painless. Murray signed a 1-year, $1.3 million contract on March 12 after his release by the Cardinals, who would be paying him $35.5 million themselves. Arizona was footing almost the entire bill for a quarterback now throwing footballs to Justin Jefferson in a different uniform. From the moment ink hit paper, most people around the league treated the outcome as inevitable. From that moment, the former number 1 overall pick was the presumed starter over 2024 first-rounder J.J. McCarthy, who had struggled mightily the year before and experienced health issues through 2 pro seasons. But Minnesota didn't hand Murray anything. They made him go win it, at least publicly. That's where the real drama of this offseason actually started. Not the announcement itself, but the weeks of grinding that led up to it. For a job that plenty of people assumed was decided. The moment Murray's signature hit the contract, the actual competition stretched out longer and got messier than expected. It started in the spring. J.J. McCarthy had struggled in his first few starts, and Minnesota elected to bring in veteran competition. And that competition played out across OTAs and minicamp. Before training camp even opened, reps got split. Coaches stayed publicly neutral. And the guy who had the most on the line without throwing a single pass, Justin Jefferson, kept getting asked to referee it from the sideline in every media session. Jefferson tried to stay diplomatic for months. On a podcast appearance discussing the battle, he said the competition could genuinely bring out the best in both signal callers, framing it as a challenge for McCarthy, who now had a serious rival, while Murray had to prove he was still a QB1 after being discarded by Arizona. He kept using words like improvements when reporters pressed him for details, telling media, "Improvements? I see a lot of great plays being out there," without ever tipping his hand toward one guy over the other. But cracks in that neutrality started to show. Jefferson eventually admitted the pressure Murray's arrival put on McCarthy. was a good thing for the kid's development, saying for JJ, for somebody to enter that room with that type of ability, that type of talent, he's got to step it up a little bit. That's about as close as a star receiver gets to publicly picking a side without actually saying the name. Meanwhile, the analyst world wasn't nearly as careful. Dan Orlovsky had been circling this quarterback room from the moment Murray arrived, and back in May, he delivered a blunt verdict on McCarthy's chances, telling Pat McAfee's show, "I think this is an uphill battle for JJ McCarthy on and off the field." He also picked apart something McCarthy himself had said about the two quarterbacks not talking much during OTAs, calling it a bad look since you're on the same team at the end of the day. Orlovsky wasn't done there. As camp rolled on, he dug into whether Murray's game would even fit what O'Connell wanted from a quarterback. He pointed out that O'Connell's offense typically wants a point guard at quarterback, not a gunslinger hunting for chunk plays, quoting Murray's own past comments about wanting the ball in his hands and wanting to use his legs more to impact games. Orlovsky's read was that that's not really how the Vikings offense is built to be played. That's not really how Kevin O'Connell wants his quarterback to play. That's a real concern from someone who's actually played the position, not just noise. Then camp practices started, and the story took a strange turn. Murray, the presumed favorite, didn't look great early on. It was the expected conclusion to the team's quarterback competition, despite a rocky series of practices leading to the decision. With Murray struggling in recent days and throwing 2 interceptions in a full-pad stadium practice, though McCarthy wasn't able to capitalize on it. That's the wrinkle nobody expected. The guy who was supposed to win running away instead, stumbling right before the finish line, and the guy who needed to seize the opening failing to take advantage. Vikings insider chatter picked up on it too. According to Purple Insider's Matthew Collar, McCarthy's grip on even the backup job wasn't guaranteed, with Collar noting that if McCarthy kept playing the way he had for the first several days of camp, there's a good chance Carson Wentz will be the backup. Suddenly, this wasn't just a 2-man race for QB1. It was a fight for a roster spot at all. Despite all of that noise, O'Connell made his move faster than the outside speculation predicted. He didn't wait for the shakiness to resolve itself in preseason games against real opposing defenses. He pulled the trigger with Murray still working out kinks, betting that the resume and the physical tools would eventually win out over shaky early reps. When O'Connell explained the decision publicly, he leaned on exactly that logic, trusting the tape and the trajectory over any one rough practice. He told reporters that what stood out through the 10 days of camp wasn't the mistakes, but what could be. A quote that immediately spread across the football world as shorthand for the entire decision. He backed that up with specifics on what Murray had actually shown him, describing demonstrated rhythm and timing, anticipation, getting through progressions in a timely manner that can avoid negative plays and even sacks. Those are coach speak words, for he's a real starting quarterback, even with a couple of rough sessions mixed in. And that set up the moment everyone had actually been waiting for, the announcement itself, and the wave of reaction across the league that followed almost instantly. Once the news actually broke, it didn't stay contained to Minnesota. It spread across the league within hours, and the tone of the reaction split almost perfectly down the middle. Some celebrating vindication, some mourning what it meant for the guy losing the job. Start with the coach himself, because O'Connell's own comments set the emotional register for everything that followed. Speaking to Twin Cities media after the decision, he walked through exactly how it went down. O'Connell told Twin Cities media members he met with each quarterback Tuesday morning and then informed the team, with the announcement coming after 10 days of practices. He wasn't cold about it either, describing what he'd seen from Murray. He said he was convinced both physically and mentally, telling reporters, "I think he's demonstrated what he's capable of, both the experience he has playing at a high level in this league, but also his experience now of coming in here being challenged. And I think he's shown enough to really project with the right prerequisite now of work for a starter." Murray's own reaction mattered just as much, because it showed a guy who'd been humbled by the last calendar year and wasn't about to pretend otherwise. Speaking with reporters after practice on the day of the announcement, he made clear this wasn't a job he assumed he deserved just for showing up. "I didn't expect to be handed the job or anything like that. I just expected to come here and compete," Murray said, adding, "I'm very appreciative of how it was handled, and I take this job with great pride. There's been a lot of great quarterback play here in the past, and I hope I continue to carry that tradition." That's not the tone of a guy still riding the ego of a #1 draft pick. That's a guy who spent a season on IR and knows exactly how fast this league can turn. Meanwhile, national radio was already needling O'Connell about it before the ink was even dry. Dan Patrick, during a golf event interview weeks earlier, had jokingly wished the coach luck with Murray as his guy. And when the decision actually came down, Patrick's earlier tease suddenly read like a prediction. "Yeah, I think Kyler will do a good job as your starter," he told O'Connell, with an awkward pause afterward that everyone online replayed once the news became official. Then there was the sharper end of the reaction spectrum. The commentators who didn't just analyze the move, but used it to settle old scores about who'd been wrong about McCarthy all along. PFN's Matt Infante posted a lengthy take mocking the fan base and analysts who defended McCarthy through his rough season, writing that watching them eat it about JJ McCarthy, how bad he is, and how wrong so many Vikings fans were, was something he was actively enjoying. He didn't stop there either, adding that fans had defended McCarthy blindly when anyone with eyes saw he was not a good QB at all. Not even close. Not everyone piled on McCarthy, though. Some analysts pointed out that the timing itself, not the outcome, was the real story. NFL analytics coach Ryan Paganetti focused purely on the scheme fit, writing that he was really excited to see how KOC blends Kyler's skills with his scheme. That's a very different tone than the pile-on happening elsewhere on the same timeline. Genuine curiosity instead of score settling. And Dan Orlovsky, who'd spent months questioning whether Murray even fit O'Connell's system, shifted his tone once the decision became official. Instead of doubting the fit, he pivoted to what it meant going forward, publicly wondering whether Murray could pull off the same type of career revival that Sam Darnold managed after leaving Minnesota himself, while also warning through his blunt post about the pressure now sitting on Murray's shoulders to justify the decision by producing results immediately. The reactions weren't just about Murray winning, though. A huge chunk of the conversation across the league turned immediately toward what happens to the guy who lost. Once the celebration around Murray died down a little, the conversation across the NFL pivoted hard toward JJ McCarthy. And that's where things get genuinely uncertain. McCarthy hadn't been quiet about his intentions earlier in the offseason, back when the job still felt open. He'd made his position clear in interviews, saying flatly that he wanted to stay in Minnesota no matter how the competition played out. "I think I made it very clear I wanted to be here before I got here. I love this organization. I love the coaching staff. I absolutely love these players to death. This is where I want to be," McCarthy said, adding, "I feel like I can thrive in this system. Everything played out exactly how I wanted it." Reading that quote back, after losing the job hits differently. It reads almost like a guy who talked himself into an outcome that never actually arrived. Now that the job is Murray's, speculation about McCarthy's future has exploded almost as fast as the reaction to Murray winning it. With the ball now in McCarthy's court, talk has already begun about whether he will push for a trade out of Minnesota, and whether the Vikings will acquiesce if he does. That's not a small question. A former top 10 pick benched before his third season even starts is exactly the kind of story that could turn into a messy standoff behind the scenes. There's also the very real chance McCarthy doesn't even keep the backup job. Carson Wentz is still on this roster, and multiple reports throughout camp suggested his standing wasn't guaranteed above McCarthy's, let alone below it. The question becomes whether McCarthy will even end up staying on the roster. And if he loses the starting job to Murray, a trade could become an option, with a chance he could also lose out on the backup job to veteran signal caller Carson Wentz. If a trade does happen, it likely won't happen immediately. League insiders have pointed out that Minnesota has no urgent reason to rush him out the door, especially with training camp injuries already piling up across the rest of the NFL. Analysts have suggested the Vikings can afford patience, potentially waiting until a problem strikes in a QB room elsewhere and his upside flashes in a context of greater desperation, which would only increase what Minnesota could get back in a deal. Two teams have already been floated as potential destinations if that trade materializes: the Pittsburgh Steelers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, both programs that could use a change at the position depending on how their own quarterback situations shake out this fall. As for Murray, the pressure Orlovsky flagged isn't going away just because he won the job. He's stepping into an offense built around a Hall of Fame caliber receiver in Justin Jefferson, a coach known for building efficient, disciplined quarterback play, and a fan base that has now watched 3 different Week 1 starters cycle through since 2023. Murray will be O'Connell's 4th different Week 1 starting quarterback since 2023, going from Kirk Cousins in 2023 to Sam Darnold in 2024 to McCarthy and now Murray. That's not a stat that inspires patience from the fan base if things start slow. There's also a template sitting right there for what success could look like, and it's the same story that gets brought up constantly around this quarterback room. Murray has the chance to be the next former top pick to reset his career in Minnesota, hoping to follow what Sam Darnold did in 2024 on his way to a long-term deal with the Seahawks after the Vikings let Darnold leave in free agency following his Pro Bowl season. If Murray pulls that off, this becomes one of the better value signings in recent memory. If he doesn't, Minnesota is right back in the quarterback carousel next spring, this time with an even more skeptical fan base and a former #1 pick they may have already traded away for parts. For now, though, the job is his. The reps are his. The pressure from every corner of the league, the receivers counting on him, the coach who bet his scheme on him, the analysts questioning whether he even fits, and the former quarterback he beat out who's now left wondering what comes next.